Welcome. Welcome to our advanced education programming that starts at 10:15. And we're glad you're here with us on Zoom as well as present in the room. And I have with us, our topic today is gardening as we age. We are delighted to have our speaker, Kevin Nelson, whom I will introduce and turn over the mic. Kevin Nelson has had an interest in gardening that began at age 6, working in his father's garden as a mulcher. He worked on lawn maintenance crews when he was in high school and as the assistant to the superintendent at Meadowbrook Country Club while he was in college. Both of those jobs reinforced that gardening is better as a passion than an occupation. After 3 decades in the pharmaceutical industry and multiple roles of sales, training, marketing, and management, he retired in 2017. His career exposure supported the importance of research-based education and information, so Kevin decided to take his passion to the next level and become an extension master gardener. He has been very active within Douglas County EMGs, serving 2 years as president, the coordinator for the largest demonstration garden at the fairgrounds, the handyman for Monarch Way Station #1, and is currently the PR coordinator on the board. He is also the president of the Lawrence Toastmasters Club and is active in the EMG Speakers Bureau. As one who has been gardening for over half a century and is beginning to feel the toll of that work, Kevin has some valuable information on gardening as we age. Kevin Nelson.
Thank you, Cindy, and I'll get positioned here. Hoping we good. I need to get it higher. All right, are we good? Are we good on Zoom? Okay. Get my mug out of the way. This was a topic that it's looking for me right here. I'm gonna stay here until I start demonstrating, which is really hard for me not to move around while I'm talking. Gardening is really one of the very few things that you can do from your toddler until you literally are in the garden. And many of us want to do just that. And yet, just as our gardens age, so do we, and we lose a lot of our vigor. And what I came to understand was there's a lot of stuff we can be doing throughout our years, and ideally developing good habits before they become ingrained into bad habits, so that we are able to garden as long as we want to. And I recognize I just came off of the board meeting, and I usually have this speech in a slot where I need to bump up the energy, but I need that anyway because it's me and it's boring. So this is how I always bump up the energy. We got to now get back on them. So there's always energy in the room when Finn is there. So Finn is our standard poodle. And he is constantly destroying our work in the garden. It's because he has no balance. Just because there's a path doesn't mean I need to stay on it. But I also learned earlier in this year the importance of the caveats. So there's a couple I want to introduce, because remember our tree risk assessment, and he had his disclaimer, so I've kind of adapted. This presentation is for informational use only as well. You gotta recognize that I've done nothing more than go on the internet and look up stuff around gardening as we age, but I have talked with a number of therapists, both psychological and physical and occupational. And if you want real professional information, you got to go to those who are not just consulting stuff on the web. The other important caveat. But as I said, the goal of this is to recognize that we're gonna have to make some changes from stuff we've been doing much of our lives. And that yields the next question. Why bother? You know, just when I finally blow out the other knee, that's the other interesting thing is, how many of you all have had a new knee? In the master gardener communities, it's amazing. Like 50% of the hands go up, and then they go, yeah, I'm just waiting on the other one. And when then it comes around, I'm done with gardening. No, there's a lot of reasons why bother. And first and foremost is, if you want to keep that other knee from blowing out, keep it moving. There is plenty of information out there that supports the fact that if you want to remain mobile, you need to keep moving. And interestingly, they've actually studied a bunch of gardeners doing their routine tasks, 47 of them, they monitored for weeks. And they said, you know what? This meets the CDC guidelines for 30 minutes of active, moderate physical activity. And one of the nice things about it is, unlike the gym membership, the garden is going to require you to be out there. And thus, if you start the garden, you're more inclined to be the gardener and to do that physical activity. All of us as master gardeners know the mental health benefits. You know, there was this whole thing towards mindfulness. That was mindfulness. Mindfulness is weeding. There is no question that just being out there and pulling stuff you don't like is a very relaxing and encouraging activity. Also, you know, one of the quotes from The Secret Garden is that when you have a garden, you have a future. And when you have a future, you have a reason to live. And how many of you have known someone who worked their entire life, never got any other hobbies, and when they stopped working, they stopped living, and within 2 years, dead? It is all too common. You plant lettuce, at least you know you're going to be there for 4 weeks. So you're really ambitious when you retire at 67 or whatever, plant a tree. There's no question that having something to look forward to is very important in our mental health. Gardening yields that. And I want to make, I should have done another caveat. I'm going to make fun of all of us, yours truly included. So if I step over the line, understand I'm just insensitive and give me a break. A lot of people join master gardening for the social opportunities as well. Having something in common goes a long way to making a connection you might otherwise have. And granted that our group tends to be more blue than red, but still, when you get the two together, you get K-State purple. But you've got something that you can relate to, and having that relation gives social opportunities and an opportunity to interact with people. And that's another important mental health thing. There's a lot of evidence about that. Finally, I'm going to be asking you to make some changes, maybe make some purchases. Gardening allows you to produce stuff for relatively little money. As you heard earlier, we got stuff in the back of the room because we're finally taking it out of our own gardens. That's saving a lot of money. Likewise, if you're not going out there with the old vases you have and throwing some of your flowers in there and giving it to someone who you want to make an impact on, I would urge you to do it. Because at the florist, it's $25 to $30. In your backyard, it's free, as is all the produce that you might produce. And it tastes so much better. And for those of you who still have connections to corporate offices, the break room kitchen sink, underneath, hundreds of vases, all there for the taking. Throw your own flowers in there and you're good to go. And save yourself the money of giving other gifts that they probably wouldn't appreciate as much. Finally, and this unfortunately had a very real example in the last couple of months. If we don't pass on what we have learned, mistakes happen. The prairie remnant just south of here was sprayed because the people who knew what was there retired without sharing their information. You heard at the beginning of our presentation the importance of sustainability. There is no learning curve that the next generation can afford to have. Take the time to share what you know. You all are really knowledgeable, and share it with broadly. Once again, if you think about the social opportunities, how do I relate to my grandkids or kids or doing all these electronic stuff? I don't invite them out in the garden. It's an even playing field, and you can make a lot of connections that way. So I urge you to not only, and I don't know that I need to bother all of you, because I think you're going to bother anyway, but I'm sharing this so that you can share it with others who are thinking about it, who don't come to these presentations because they know it's me speaking. Share it with them, because it's really important. So I've talked about adjustments. We're going to talk about all the kinds of adjustments you need to make. You need to first foremost start with your expectations. Then you got to talk about your body. I don't want us to talk about their old body. So we got to. I'm going to talk about the garden itself, and then most importantly, the tools. And I know everyone's going, a bunch of props. Speakers with props are always bad. A picture and a prop's worth thousands of words, but let's talk about some of those adjustments that we need to make. And what was really interesting is when I began researching this topic, almost every time they brought up the importance of changing expectations. That perfection you talked about, or that you always had growing up, and you may have now ingrained in yourself, got to change if you want to not be out there all the time. Who's seen that Progressive ad where Dr. Rick is talking to the guy who's out there cleaning his garbage cans, and he walks by the boxwood and he goes, "I got to deal with that hedge." No one's looking at the hedge. Dr. Rick is right. If it's a healthy boxwood, it's growing all the time. And for it to be perfect, you need to be pruning it all the time. If you're willing to let it go to once or twice a year, it allows you to deal with the body that isn't capable of doing as much. So your expectation of perfectionism needs to change. You also need to recognize that what I can do in my 60s is not what I could do in my 20s. And I've come to recognize that, and I think we all have. And not just from the physical ability, but the endurance. So as that recognition comes, so comes the changes that need to be made. So recognize you are changing. Recognize that your core strength isn't what it was. And we'll talk about that as we talk about navigating in the garden. But acknowledging that means that I can't do this stuff in the garden that I created in my 20s. Once you recognize it, you now got to say, okay, I'm accepted. Once you get that mindset, you're now able to change, and you're now able to reevaluate. So what do I care about? Marie Kondo, the Japanese lady who just declutters, she's given up. Has everyone heard that? She says, I just can't do this anymore. It's just too much work. And her priorities have changed with all that work. If Marie can change, so can all of us. But she was really passionate about that. Now she's got all this money, I can do what I want to do, and she had children. So let's talk about we worked on your mindset a bit, and hopefully that will now say, okay, so what do I need to do differently with my body? And it starts with the recognition that our bodies are not only older and not as good a shape, but in talking with physicians and occupational physical therapists, they have all said, you just don't repair as quickly as you used to. And all of us are in that. So when you blow out the other knee, that surgery that was so easy at 57, at 69 might be altogether different. So all of them said prevention. It's all about prevention, not repair, because the repair is so much harder the older we get. And my mother, in her last year of life, I went and visited her, and she was constantly covered with these bruises. I'm going, is Dad beating you? What's the deal? And she says, I just bump into the wall and I just start bruising. And that's not at all uncommon. In talking with my dermatologist, I said, so what do you worry about most? And I expect the skin suntan lotion and skin cancer, and everyone expects that. What he didn't say was that what he said was bug bites. I've had people that when they got a chigger or a mosquito or a tick, no big deal when they're 25. It incapacitates them for 3 weeks. The poison ivy said, so tell them if you got a poison ivy allergy or a sensitivity, it's not an allergy, it's a sensitivity. You got to be aware of that, and you got to do the prevention. You can't just grab it with your glove and throw it away, because when you do this, you're going to have probably a closed eye for a week and a half. So you got to treat it like dog poop. Seriously, if you get, that's the one thing the good comes with that circular, the Lawrence Journal World Tours. It's a nice dog poop bag. Turn it in, or for that matter, the plastic bags from the grocery store we're hoping to get rid of. Yes. Grab it with that, turn it inside out, and throw it away. And prevent the reaction that you're likely to have. This is the other thing. This is do as I say, not as I do. I'm horrible about stretching. And I came to most recognize it because I've been very fortunate of the lack of problem I've had. I've only been incapacitated through back pain once, but it was, yes, just wait. I know it's coming. But in talking with the chiropractor, she said, so what were you doing? I said, just moving a pile of mulch. But it's moving a pile of mulch with the same, no stretching involved. I went inside, laid down, and it just hit me. And I was in complete agony for an hour. And you weren't around, Suzanne, so you didn't get to see it. But yeah. For those on Zoom, my dear wife said, when I said you didn't get to see it, she said, I would have liked it. But interestingly, in talking with my son is a professional ballet dancer, and we just bugged him incessantly about stretching, even though neither one of us ever did it. And he hated it. But when I talked to him after he retired, I said, so, looking back, what would you have done differently? Wish I'd have done more stretching. It really is important. If you look at how the Chiefs and the Royals and all the other, they are out there stretching. And importantly, you got Prevention Magazine just did a 9 quick tips. It's out there. There's an app called Bend. It's free. And they'll walk you through these routines you can do every day. Just simply do stretching. And keep in mind, there's just way too much content for me to do all the details here. I'm just making you uncomfortable. Because I know as a salesperson, the first thing you need to do to have someone change is to make them uncomfortable enough to change without pissing them off. So once again, watch that fine line. I talked about the skin protection already. It's also sleeves. It's bugs. Chiggers and ticks this year, and I've had them on me for I know it's just been an hour or two. I'll have this welt on my skin for days, and this is with really high potency corticosteroids on top of it. Repair is not the choice. Prevention. This slide was different the last time I delivered. Someone screamed out hydration. Yes, we're out there perspiring, and we don't even know it. And once again, it's just a little bit of wobbly because I'm dehydrated. Over you go. So make sure you got the bottle of water out there and you're actually drinking it. Because I bring it out there and then I forget where it is. And I will find it a couple of days later. Posture mechanics. We'll talk about that as we look through some of the tools as well. But this. And forgive me, Osbach, you're not going to see it. All the people on Zoom, I'm bending over. This is not a good strategy to pull weeds. Your posture goes a long way. And there are people in the room going, yeah, I do it all the time. Do as I say, not as I do. But we'll talk about it a bit as we talk about the tools. But the other thing we got to think about is timing. And timing in a couple of different ways. First of all, sun goes down next week. What time? 9 something. You can be out there in a cool evening working till 9. You get in that habit, come October, it's down at 5. Can you see what you're doing? When you do something is really important in terms of your ability to do it. Likewise, it's June. You get up, right now we walk outside, what does it say? 74. July at 10:35, 92. When you do it is really important. Can you do it? Because if you're doing it at times that your body, your old, decrepit, not like it used to be body is not used to, you're going to do it for far less time. So timing is really important. Timing is also important in terms of how long. Everyone knows there used to be this thing called carpal tunnel syndrome. You don't hear a lot about it anymore. It's really interesting. What was the thing that brought about carpal tunnel? Yeah, everyone's going this. Yeah, I can't think of a more complex, difficult activity than this. It's the repetition and never taking a break. So this is where my ADD shines, because I move from project to project and things different within 15 minutes. So I never have to worry about how long I'm doing something. Those of you who are just dedicated, I'm going to get this all done before I stop. The one time I did that was the mulch pile. And sure enough, in the office on the ground in agony, because I dedicated an hour and a half to this motion over and over and over. Timing is really important, and that comes into task diversity. So you know you got to water, you know you got to weed, you know you got to prune, you know you got to pick up, diversify, and avoid the repetition that your body's not used to. Adjust the garden. This is another thing, and it's interesting. I've talked with a number of master gardeners who became master gardeners because I'm just retired and I bought 40 acres and I'm going to do all this, but I've always wanted to do. And then they stopped being my mentee several years ago. He said, "There's just too much to do. I can't be a master gardener anymore." He said, I enjoyed all of you all, but I just can't." You need to keep in mind, what are your priorities and what can you do with your new limitations? And it starts with considering your size. And this, when I was doing the very first pass of this, I said, no, it's size matters. Suzanne goes, "You can't say that." I'm going, where's your mind? But it does. Because as you think about what's comfortable for you, what's comfortable for me at 6'3" is different from Suzanne or Jim Blom or anyone who's less than 6'3". So how you craft your garden, what you choose to do, varies by your size. Certainly your garden size comes into play as well. But be thinking about that. And a lot of what I'm going to be showing you and talking about is not stuff that I immediately want you to run out and do. I'm going to be giving you examples when there are opportunities for change. Do I do what I've always done, or do I think about what I'm doing in the future? So when all the annuals die, as they all do in October, ask yourself, next year, do I really want to take care of all these annuals? Or maybe do I want to plan for the native plant sale? Because Megan's going to have so much more inventory next year. And go with perennials. It's a lot less work. So when I'm talking about this, I said perennial. So what is a perennial?
Comes back every year.
Comes back every year. Any other? That's one. It's actually a multi-defined word. There's the 2 years, an indefinitely long period. I want to talk about some different perennials that do really well here in Kansas. And I'm going to do so via a situation we were faced with. So our house had this formal Japanese yew that I had to prune a couple times a year, and they started dying. I don't know why. I do know why. Suzanne was cursing them. If there is a garden voodoo, my wife has it. So I would go to the nursery and I said, I need a 2-foot tall, 30-year-old boxwood in a rectangular shape. No one had them. So I'm faced with, okay, these got to come out. What do we do? And I want you to notice the tree ring. Does that mean who has gotten the question? I can't get my grass to grow under the tree. Yeah, it's not supposed to. So I always have, a tree ring. And as I've aged, as I've thought about how much do I want to mow, and I thought about bumping the mower up against it, I said, you know what, we need to change that. So the yews came out and we replaced them with one of my favorite perennials, green slate. Hardscaping is perennial. Mulch is perennial. And you notice the tree ring is much bigger now. Because I've replaced the difficult to grow grass that you have to replant every year because it doesn't grow under trees with mulch. And I don't think it looks bad. And actually, I keep making another foot each year. As I get the end of the mulch pile, and what do I do with it now? Weed eater out, kill the grass that's finally there and make it bigger. I urge you all to do that. I urge you all to think about some of the other things that can reduce the amount of time and make it easier. Consider access. So who has those nifty stepping stones that you see at the garden centers, and we may have sold them at the craft sale, and some got marbles in them and shells and other things that when they get a dew on them become just a slick. And now you get to do the Karate Kid, because your core strength is so good now that you can just go through those stepping stones. It worked when you were 25. Is the stepping stone what you want now? Or do you want a path? It's like 3 feet, like a sidewalk. And ideally not one that looks like that. And this is the first picture. And think about, how do I change it? Hardscaping and terrace. So this is the first picture of one of those inflection points. This is our backyard looking south to north. And we have a berm on the backside that was all grassed. And I got plantar fasciitis, which if you don't think it's bad, look at Tiger Woods. It hurts like hell and it just doesn't go away. So Suzanne said, "Oh, Mo." Boy, that was a mistake. Because she came in and said, "I'm never mowing again." All right, well, what happened? You see here that it doesn't really do it justice. It's about a 45% slope. And here on this side, we've got maples. So the roots go down and they're just under the surface. So you're constantly hitting these roots, which frequently don't have anything on them, so they become nice and slippery and twist your ankle. She says, "I'm never mowing again." So I will have to get one of the kids from next door. No, hire somebody. You're not going to ruin some college athlete's life by twisting their ankle too. So an inflection point, what do we do? So I didn't want to mow anymore. And keep in mind, you heard from my bio, I was an assistant superintendent at a golf course. I was all about turf grass. Not anymore. Changed my perspective. This is what we chose to do. So there's the really steep slope. There's the terracing. That's my new vegetable garden. Because the lot next door to me where my vegetable garden was sold, inflection point. Where was I gonna put it? There it is now. And that path actually needs to be widened. That's my fall project. There is, so the grass is now gone. The slope is now gone. As you can see, took the rocks that were in there, and those are all perennials. And those are not high maintenance. I will tell you, phlox just spreads. And you don't need to do anything but pull it. And you pull it and bring it to the master gardeners and give it away. Or you go on next door and give it away. We had like 6 or 7 people come out and just take wheelbarrows full of phlox. But it's a lot actually easier to maintain than the grass was. And I'm certainly not watering it. At the very end of this, you can see the slope really gets extreme. And the maple is right there. That's this next one. Oh, there's what it looks like from the other side. So that's looking south. But you can see, just this is the stuff that Kansas grows natively. The perennials, limestone. And you can just find them and just dry stack them. You don't need to do anything other than just lay them on the ground and throw the dirt behind it. And you got a terrace. And I think it looks better than the grass. There's the final slope. So that is more evident of what it was. And that, because of the shade, is always wet when you're out there mowing. And with the roots of that maple right there on the surface, it was an accident waiting to happen, for which you wouldn't be able to repair. So we just took it out. And you see, that's the kind of path you need now. Just took the native stone, perennial stone. Now, don't get the annual stone. You gotta get the perennial stuff. And you make a terrace. And you get rid of a lot of grass, because it's hard to take care of. So think about when you are forced with inflections, what can I do differently? The next thing in terms of adjusting garden, who can tell me the best time to weed? After a rain. I missed this one. Everyone knows about raised beds, containers, your master gardeners. I won't go into that, you all know, but do think about your size and is it comfortable for your height? And if you think you're moving that one that's 36 inches in diameter, change your mind. Or put it on a dolly before you fill it up. Oh, another tip, the best way to get to empty a container like that, shop vac. Shop vac. There's one for you. Now you can leave. You got one useful piece of information. Someone said water right after the rain. Absolutely right. How many of you create that after the rain environment before you go into weed? Many of you do. Good for you. But a lot of other people don't. Prepare for the work. You know you're going to be weeding in that space and not the whole friggin' garden, because remember, talked about timing. I'm working on this bed today. Put a soaker hose or one of those little pop-up sprinklers, like an 1/8 of a turn, and get it saturated. They like to have the rain or the water come that way anyway. The other thing, preparing for work, and this is where, as I say, as I do, put away the hoses before you start trying to walk. Pick up the rake. I've not had the Looney Tunes thing yet, but it's coming. But once again, if you're trying to prevent these things, think about, is my garden ready for me to be out there working with stuff in my hands? It's like, I'm gonna step over that. No, you're gonna have a fall. Oh, final one. And this is one more thing to think about as you're talking about the size of my garden. Those of you who were on the Master Gardener Tour in 2019, ours was on there. You got to see these, it's a tri-colored willow on some kind of tree stock. And the tree stock was dying. Mushrooms everywhere. If I knew what I was doing, I might have eaten them. But the willow was not fine. It was just always growing because that's what willows do, but they were dying. And Suzanne said, get rid of them, they're ugly. But they were really nice. We grow forget-me-nots under them and hydrangeas. They finally all died. We finally were fortunate enough to get that piece of property, which now we're not quite the 40 acres, but we have an extra 1/10 of an acre that was given when they sold the lot. What are we gonna do with that? Do we really want to plant more? And to Margaret's imploring us to do what's right for our planet and economy, there are some places where individual homeowners can install a solar panel, and that is in my backyard. I get plenty, but to her point, our roof was completely worthless for solar panels. You know, it's like this. That's what you can do with extra space. And it's planet's better off because of it, because at this point, I'm more than carbon neutral. So, tools. All right, Ozbot. I think this. Spider in the Ozbot. All right. Gonna start with leverage. Who knows Archimedes? Archimedes, one of his favorite quotes was, I gotta, sir. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to put it, and I will move the world. The concept of leverage. Give you an example. 1.5, 2 inches. 1.5, 2 inches. 1.5. I can just go prune with these. No. The leverage you get with this is dramatically different. The cutting space is the same. The difference is leverage. Oh, wow. Think about that as you're addressing any of your garden tasks. If you're thinking about this thing, yes, you can be down there doing this, but if you've got leverage, oh, great. Remember I talked about positioning? This is altogether different than this. Who knows this tool? Yeah. Anyone got this tool?
Got it.
Leverage. Has anyone got the quad figure? So what do you do with this thing? You pull. Well, you loosen the soil because it's got this little groove thing and a cutter, but that's not what you're doing. You're just literally loosening the soil so the whole thing comes out. That applies to all of your weeding. So I turn the quad puller. If you all are not Zoom, can you see that?
Yeah.
If you're not going out, you know you're weeding, you just go and use your weight, this, to loosen all of that soil, 4 prongs at a time. It's a lot easier to weed then. And you all have this already. You use it as an dandelion. No, probably not. So that's the leverage concept. That also plays into positioning. Everyone has told, lift with your legs, not with your back. You've heard it all your life. Who still lifts with their back? Me too. But know that these muscles are a lot stronger than these. And these are much more likely to get pulled. So think about, am I at the proper position? And picking it up out here, would it just be slightly better if I went pick it up here? Your positioning goes a long way to whether or not you're going to get hurt. If you get hurt, it's going to take longer to repair. Cushioning. This is pipe insulation. How many of you all have a bit of arthritis in your hands? It's a lot easier when you have something bigger to grip. This is not very big, and to grip it, I gotta really squeeze it. And I can't really squeeze it because I've got arthritis in my hands. $3 for 4 feet of pipe insulation. It even comes with sticky. And
I read that this is the size of your grip.
yes. Osbot, that's the size of your grip. So that's got to be the goal for your tools.
Sometimes you can get a better.
Yeah.
I can use pool noodles.
Pool noodles, yeah. Yeah, pool noodles are another one. This is a great tool. It's got a serrated edge, it's got this thing, it's got a scooper, you can use it as a shovel, and the only way I would make that better is to have it work the same way that my wrist works. My wrist is not designed to do this, it's designed to go like that. And jump forward. There's a whole set of them. And there's another company's taking it to the next level. I'm not saying run out there and buy these things. I'm saying if you got an inflection point, like, Mom, what do you want for your birthday? That's an inflection point. I want those. Use that opportunity to make a change that will help you garden as you age. We talked about positioning. How many of you have one of these?
Yeah.
I think I got it at the Goodwill or the Restore, and I brought it home. Suzanne said, "What is that?" This is the biggest thing I've ever seen. Who now uses it all the time? All right, those of you who don't have that, I think I have one of these. And forgive me, I'm gonna have to get out the broom, but the reality is it comes in a shorter version too. And all of them are better than this. Because this is not a good posture. And the other nice thing about this, you put your weeds in this because you got a lot of weeds. You can put that over the plant that is next to it. So you just slip the hosta under there. And who remembers the sit and spin? You can just, and you're not damaging the plant because the bucket's keeping you from being in it. You're not even really compressing the soil. If you don't have 3 and 5 gallon buckets that you use for gardening, you're missing a big opportunity. And those of you concerned, oh, they're uncomfortable. They actually sell seats that fit all of these. Well, you got these things. When you're kneeling, use these things. When you're sitting, it's not uncomfortable. What do I have up here? They've got these things too, designed for it. I'm cheap. I just go look for the stuff. Every construction site has those for free. And it's a really effective tool you need to be using. They've also got, for those of you with desire that money, put the two together, that one. Condition. Who's been to one of those cooking classes? Too close on it. Ever been to a cooking class? What's the first thing they do?
Wash your hands.
Second? No, they immediately start sharpening knives. And then they'll say, I don't want my knives too sharp because I cut myself. I said, no, you cut yourself when the knife is dull and you're using too much pressure. And that's when it gets bad. The same applies to our tools. And when we had our pruning workshop earlier this year, I was introduced to this tool. It's just a carbide tool that you use, just drag over your pruning tools, your shovels. And if you do this once a week, your tools stay really sharp. This is $10. Amazon, Home Depot, Ace Hardware. Hey, this is Corona is the brand. It's Corona sells these. And it's just a sharpening steel. Yeah. Oh, condition. First did this. I went looking for a pair of gloves. My gloves. Who has these gloves? And they're your favorite. Do we have any left-handers? We need to get together at the end of this because I've got a whole bunch of right-handed gloves. Trade you a bunch of left-handed gloves. Once again, prevention, not repair. If this is what it's doing to leather, what's it gonna do to my skin? We got actual damage in the back of the brain. I can go without saying, no one wants to lose their eyesight now. Everyone's already losing their hearing now.
What?
Start doing it immediately with the added benefit. You have a reason for not listening to your significant other. Protect yourself now, or your senses, because when they get damaged, it's going to be really hard to repair them. Oh, before I talk about other things. Yes.
When you did the class online with the live activity, you had a really nifty, I don't know what you call it. It was a handle that you got it, remember?
Thank you for teeing that up. Who has one of these? Who's is broken like this one? Suzanne says, why are you keeping that? Looks like some beaver. Shoot it. And why is the handle like that? It's for your back. You mean it matters how your handles are? So why don't all the other tools have handles like this? Because this is once or twice a year where you go out there and you don't worry about timing. You don't worry about other things and you screw up your back. So we're going to make it a little less likely by giving you an ergonomic handle. $8 on Amazon. It's the same concept. It's not quite as good. And I got a longer one that I found a long time at the store or something. It's just like 3 inches longer, which really replicates that. But I urge you, if you're doing this kind of activity, mulch, anyone, is it any different than snow? Why aren't you using an ergonomic handle? Because they're not offering it. So that's the reason I'm keeping this A as a prop. But B, because when the beavers are finally done and it's no longer functional, I'm going to put that handle on something that I'm going to use in the garden. Those of you looking for a Father's Day gift, $8 on Amazon. You don't have to tell them that. Say, I bought you a new tool. Just put this on there. Here, it's like my old tool, but it's better.
Okay, after watching your presentation, I ordered one. It was the best, it was actually $9.99. Best investment. I was able to work instead of 1 or 2 hours, literally 5 or 6 hours and had no back pain. Because you could use to body mechanics or use not just your legs.
Yes.
But you use your whole upper body.
And you're not bending.
No.
Because remember, and I have a real problem.
It was, so I went and ordered 3 more, and by the way, they're very easy to take on.
You can move them from tools. The price I got is because I buy 5 at a time. So I got that many tools. I'm lazy to not change them, but they're easily changed. The tool even stores on the handle.
What's
Um,
it called?
Called an ergonomic garden tool handle thingy. I keep forgetting to put that in. I can look it up on my Amazon history. Yeah. But it's a great Father's Day gift, great Mother's Day gift. What else have I missed up here? Oh, yeah. Condition. All right, remember, we're getting rid of the stepping stone because none of us with a Karate Kid would stand on one foot for God knows how long because of core strength. My muckers, this is a great set of shoes. Don't worry about them getting wet. They're expensive, but they do last for a while. Like what those in the back of the room and on Zoom, it's kind of slick now. So they're kind of like ice skates. You got to recognize that this is every bit as bad as that paving with the marbles on it. When you talk about a wet surface, so I got another pair that actually has treads. Once again, when you're out there, particularly on grass, the reason to get rid of grass is it's slippery and you're gonna get hurt. So now I can talk about tillers.
I looked it up. Back easy, back saving tool handle, attachment, labor saving, ergonomic, and then.
Yeah.
Deliver tomorrow.
Back easy, yeah. Back easy, and once you search it once and you find close to what you're looking for, you scroll down, it gives you all these other people who are paying to intercept your search. And you got a bunch of other options, but it is a lifesaver. The final thing I want to talk about is others. How many of you all like to help people? How many of you all like to be helped by people? I didn't see all the same hands go up.
It depends on who's gonna help you.
It shouldn't.
Oh, yes.
I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm saying it shouldn't. The reality, and this was something I did talking with one of my representatives. I said, you need to go ask so-and-so, about their kind of problem. I can't do that. Why not? I'm just not comfortable asking for help. And I said, do you like to give? Oh yeah, I love helping people. I said, well, then maybe you need to extend them the privilege of getting the satisfaction that you so want when you get to help people. And a lot of what you've seen me do in my garden is not going to be done by you or your spouse, because I still am fairly healthy. But there's a lot of others that I still need to do different. And the final prop. Lift it up. Roll it onto a sled. When you go to transplant things, just dig around it. They call it a breaker bar. It's a big iron bar that they use in the railroads. Shove that thing underneath. You use a T-bar driver to drive it. It pops it out of the ground. Roll it onto this and take it where you need to go, or direct someone else to do it for you. But this is a multi-season implement, and people don't think of it. And I urge you to do it because rolling on big rocks, they slide every bit as easy. On turf grass, they're really sliding. I urge you to engage others because they want to help you if they care about you. And that's what you got to say. Do you care about me? Back to the second slide. Change your expectations. Now I put this slide deck was designed as a handout, so I didn't have to read all the URLs. I'll give you the tips here. First of all, you see that the very first time I gave this, I said, why do you have the Australian government? And I said, as I was researching this, I was amazed. People garden throughout the world. And some of them have been doing it for millennia. They might actually have some good ideas of their own we haven't thought about, and that someone's not trying to make money off of. I urge you to go to the British sites. All kinds of really interesting tools, well made, and I haven't even thought about that. So as you're doing your searches, go to Google, go to Bing, go to DuckDuckGo, any of the tools, and put in gardening, aging, gardening, accessible, gardening, adaptive. Put in these search terms and then look for sites that end in edu or .gov or .au or .uk. I have no problem with .coms, with the exception of the fact that I know they're trying to sell me something. And it may not be the best solution out there because they're trying to sell me something. But there's a tremendous amount of resources for all of you who I've just made uncomfortable and didn't provide an answer because I told you I wouldn't. But if you're uncomfortable, ask yourself, what would it be like if I was now injured and uncomfortable and watching the weeds completely out of control because I can't get out there? It's going to require some change, adaptations. There's a group here. There's really sharp people in this group. You can ask some of them because they have a lot of good solutions. And now it's time to bring Finn back in.
You put that last slide back.
This. So now all the unanswered questions, because I told you there's gonna be a lot. Bob and then Alex. I did not ask. I just, I know I'm going to Susan's garden to Deadhead. Yes. Bob,
Okay, on the stretching, I would remind everybody that your stretching should be general.
yes,
Don't go out and push yourself in the muscle. You should never stretch whole muscles, so what you do is gentle, slow.
No.
On the point of your mulching, the thing that I found that is working is that you treat it as you treat an exercise. An exercise, if you go to the gym, they always talk about sets and reps. So if you're shoveling mulch, do about 5 or 6, one hand, switch to the other hand, and 5 or 6, that way, back and forth, back and forth.
and the other thing is keep in mind, these muscles are small and multiple, which makes them more likely to be pulled. So you want to not use them if you can avoid it. So among the things that the chiropractor and occupational therapist told me is, you don't do this because you're using nothing but these. You do this. This stays the same, using big muscles that get stretched all the time and that are a lot more durable. That's under there as you look for gardening stretching, gardening posture, gardening, all those other terms. There's reputable people out there to help. But Bob's, see, that's what I said, got all these master gardeners who know what they're talking about, not just like me.
My husband and I have a thing that we do now, that if we are asking ourselves, well, should I really do this? We picture it as a headline in the newspaper. And you put your age in and your sex and what you thought you could do and what happens. And what would be your reaction if you read that? You'd be going, well, that was really stupid. What was that? Oh, I don't know. But right before you decide to do it.
76-year-old couple found crack skulls in their garden if you're trying to navigate the stepping stone. Joanne,
Just something to think about. I mean, everybody does know this, I teach dance, I'm pretty loudly aware. But as I've aged, I start to have more problems with balance. And if you're feeling off balance, the most important thing you can do is stop and center yourself before you reach the best. Because that's something I started to have trouble with in my garden.
how many people have gardens around all their house? Keep your hands up. How many of you have seating around all your house?
Have what?
Seating, benches,
Oh.
chairs. A lot of hands. Count. Are you giving your place a place? You saw I changed it into a perennial slate. It's now a seating area. We've got seating areas throughout the garden because when you feel dizzy, sit down
And drink your water.
and drink your water.
The other thing with balance, I take a lot of exercise classes, and when I go on vacation or there's a break, my muscles get maybe a little weaker, but what you lose the quickest is your balance. And so it's good to practice balancing in your house, you know, with a chair there to catch you, but stand on one foot, stand on the other foot, see how long you can do it, because balance takes practice.
Yes. Suzanne, would you like to comment on physical therapy, post knee and balance?
No, but I was gonna piggyback on Megan. When you brush your teeth, do it on one leg and then switch. I mean, you have to stand there anyway, you might as well.
If you're
We're
standing
standing
in line, you're going to the store with
Yeah.
the car, stand.
Or going to try to do yoga classes on
Yes.
Monday and Wednesday.
Actually, I want to invite everybody to work at the cider gallery this Monday. I'll be teaching a class there in the 5:30 to 6:30. Gentle yoga class. Maybe you begin your practice on Monday.
Thank you, all the plugs. Another plug, Douglas County Core is meeting at the 406 boutique on 406 12th Street. You know, volunteer or entrepreneurs, someone who wants to help entrepreneurs, an open house that I'm involved with, as long as they're making public service announcements. Any other questions? Thank you for your attention. I know you didn't want to be here.